Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Welcome to Consider Islam. Live with Kenny Bomer, an affiliate and founder of the Consider This TV network. Any views, actions, or comments made by panelists during this broadcast do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of CTTV network hosts or affiliates. This channel and its affiliates do not claim any right over any of the graphics, images, or songs used in this video that are protected under copyright by other individuals or organizations. All rights are reserved to the respective copyright owners. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. The works on this channel are protected under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA, of 1998, which amended the existing U.S. copyright law to address important parts of the relationship between copyright and the Internet. Now here is your host, Kenny Bomer.
Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi barakatuh. Peace be upon everyone who's watching. My name is Kenny Bomer. This is Consider Islam Live with yours truly. And on the panel today, we have a friend of mine, Mindy Domeier, also goes by the name of Lady Avon. So, Mindy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, alhamdulillah. It's been a while since we've been on a stream together. It's been a while since I've done a stream, period. I did one, the first one in a while, yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, but yeah, just been busy with life and so forth. And I know you made a big transition from Canada to the United States.
Yeah,
so you've been kind of a bit
life
dormant,
has
I
been
think,
kind
as
of
well.
busy.
Yeah. So, but should we, before we get started with our discussion, and we're just planning to have a friendly discussion. Mindy is an atheist. I'm a Muslim. But we are friends. It didn't start out that way. So should we go into a brief history so people understand the complexity of this deal? Okay, so I'll tell you what. I'm going to let you kind of explain it if you would like. And
All right, well then feel free to jump in then.
Okay, sure.
It was 2020 when we first met, and I had been debating on Facebook groups and religious Facebook groups for quite a while. I was kind of dipping my toes into that and came across you, and we had quite a few Facebook arguments, quite a few.
Yeah.
We did not like each other at first. And then I jumped on a panel with you, and you invited me to come to your show, and you were streaming, and I stuck around for that first stream for like 3 hours. And
yes. Yeah, you did.
yeah, and it's just kind of snowballed for there, really. Like, I started hanging out and coming on the panel and participating in the side chats, and we were friends on Facebook. We've talked back and forth. We've been through a lot in the 3 years of friendship that we've had. So
Yeah.
despite the
Yeah.
fact that our beliefs are still very different, I think we're proof that you can have different beliefs and still be friends.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Yeah, it was a little rocky at first, and matter of fact, it's I've been avoiding any type of Facebook interactions since that time, and I'm not saying that was what triggered it, but just the interactions in the Facebook groups and so forth, going back and forth with people, and just it was so time consuming that I just stopped doing that. I'd rather have a live discussion, and a lot of people aren't up to doing that. But to me, it just it's more fruitful, and found myself typing the same stuff over and over and over again, and
Yeah.
it just got old, and so I just feel like I'd rather have a live discussion to
Well,
make
the
everything
the
easier.
Facebook debate groups have changed a lot since you and I first interacted and met. A lot of it is it's not debate really. It's just kind of the theists will post something and the atheists will attack them, and then they go back and forth, and then atheists will post stuff and the religious will attack. It's just basically a fight. It's like high school, really. There's
Yeah,
no of all the groups, because I think at one point I was in like 10 to 15 different groups, and there was nothing productive coming out of any of them. And I've dropped a lot of them. I will still like poke in occasionally, but a lot of times people will post something on one of the groups and then they don't respond to anybody. They just kind of post what they want to post and then run away. So there's no real dialogue going on.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I mean, it's kind of a dead thing.
yeah. That's the impression that I was getting even back then. To be honest,
Mhm.
it seemed that there were no fruitful discussions. The fruitful discussions, there were some initially, but um, they started being few and far in between. And
Mhm.
it's like, man, I'm wasting all my time because when I talk about these things, I'm passionate about it and I mean what I'm saying, and I'm taking time out because I'm trying to inform someone, or I'm trying to, I'm not just doing it just to do it. And
Mhm.
so when I find myself saying the same thing over and over and over again, and all I'm getting is insults in return for the most part, it's like, I'm just going to move on from this because this is not working. And then, you know, um, uh, in 2021, we're already 2023. Yeah, so I guess
Mhm.
2021. Uh, that's when the pandemic hit, right? The
2020, yeah. Because
2020. Okay,
when I first started interacting with you was when I was, stuck in the US for 6 months.
okay,
So that's when
that's
I
2020.
didn't really have anything else to do. We were at home, so I took up online debating, and you kind of started that all for me because I hadn't really considered getting on video and having discussions and streaming to live to YouTube and all that stuff. So once I got on that first stream with you, I thought, wow, this is something that I actually want to do, and that kind of started it for me on YouTube
Okay,
end
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, I do recall. It wasn't long after that that you established your own channel and so forth.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, so what I found since then, we went through that era where that period where a lot of activity was happening because of the pandemic. More and more channels were
Mhm.
popping up and so forth. And then um, last year, I was pretty busy. I was doing a lot of traveling in 2022, 2000, last year,
Mhm.
2022. But 2021 was still pretty active and had some turmoil around on the channel over
Mhm.
some variety of different things that you're aware of. We won't get into that right now, but
Mhm.
um, had some headaches, and you became a moderator. I don't know if you became a moderator in 2020. I think you did.
I
Uh,
think it was at the end of 2020 that I
yeah,
became
I
a
think
moderator
so.
because I was here for pretty much every single stream. I was doing my best to try and keep the peace in the side chat,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So then I kind of got moderator, and because I was participating and because I'm a very reasonable person, so I don't come to talk to religious people to fight with them. I just it's just a topic that I enjoy discussing, and I enjoy learning about it. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to believe, but I it's a discussion I like having.
sure, sure. Yeah, you became a moderator because I felt that I seen some things that you were saying in the chat even before you became a moderator, and I thought, well, she's trying to balance the scales out here with people on both sides being rude to one another in the chat, and she's telling them, hey, look, can't we just listen to the what's being discussed and so forth,
Mhm.
and not do all this nonsense? And I thought, well, that's the type of character you want to be a moderator. And
Mhm.
then so you became a moderator, and then started taking some flack in the chat yourself from some Muslims, unfortunately, that were in disagreement with, I guess, things that you were saying on your channel or something. I don't, and
Well,
but
I did
the
I
thing
did my
is,
very best to try and separate that, right? So whatever I was doing
yeah,
on my channel, I wasn't trying to bring it over to cause problems with your channel. I was trying to
yeah,
separate the two, you know.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And so it's like, they started bombarding me with uh, emails and messages and so forth, saying, how can I have this atheist woman as a moderator? But I was like, listen, she's being more polite than you are. I mean, you're going and attacking her for something she's doing on a different channel, but I'm concerned with what's going on my channel here.
Mhm.
And what I see on my channel is that she's not trying to promote anything that she's got going on there over here, and she's trying to get everyone to keep the peace here in our chat. And that's what I'm concerned a bit about, what she's doing as a moderator on this channel. So
Mhm.
if you don't like the fact that she's a moderator on this channel, then I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should take some lessons from her, because she's being more polite in the chat as a moderator than you are in the chat as a moderator.
Mhm. We
And
can't get anywhere if we can't be tolerant of each other,
that's
you
right.
know.
And so
So,
a lot of those people, I actually wound up removing them as moderators, because they started. I was getting tired of listening to it. And then,
oh, I've done that with other atheists too, where I've just kind of given some distance because I don't like how they behave, because there are some atheists out there that just full on go on attack mode when it comes to theists, and it's like, you're doing the same thing that you're accusing the theists of doing. So how are we ever going to get anywhere if we're all just at each other's throats all the time?
I
You
totally
know?
agree. I totally agree with that, 100%. And then, we had the issue, not between us, but actually you was on my side regarding an issue where I was being personally attacked by someone, accusations and so forth being made, and
Mhm.
you came to my rescue on that, and I appreciate that.
I am
And
very protective of my friends. That's one thing that people will learn about me quickly.
I appreciate that. And we were on the side of the truth, and the truth was manifest.
Mm.
We won't get into those issues. People can look it up on the channel if they want to, but um, then toward what I'm trying to transition into is directly after that. Uh, that's when Clubhouse started jumping off pretty big, and at least as far as my knowledge about Clubhouse was concerned. And what I was trying to do through this channel and through the Consider This TV network and so forth, bringing multiple Dawa channels together, is trying to build up everyone's channels and so forth. But what I was finding is that there were a lot of people spending so much time on Clubhouse that the streams weren't happening. And
Mhm.
people kept telling me, as a matter of fact, you should come to Clubhouse. And I went to Clubhouse for a few times, and um, the attacks started coming there as well. So it's like, you know what? This is fruitless, because a lot of the people on Clubhouse, by example, are anonymous. You have no clue who these people are. Most of the time, they're using some bogus name. It's not their real name, and you don't know who you're actually talking to or what their motivations are,
Mhm.
and they're not held accountable because you don't know who is actually saying what on there. You can't put a face to a name, and
It's easy to
all those
troll.
things. Yeah, they're just trolling, and they're just being
Mhm.
rude and so forth. Especially they see my name pop up, and here they come, man. And so it's like, you know what? I've Clubhouse for me didn't last long, because it's just argument after argument after argument, and again, it boils down to accountability. If I come on a live stream, one of the requirements that I had on my channel for a while is that if you want to come to the panel, you can come to the panel all day, but you need to turn your camera on, because we need to know who we're talking to. We had people come on and do all sorts of shenanigans, and so having no uh, video, or not unable to know who we're actually dealing with, allowed them
Mhm.
the opportunity to just do and say anything without being held accountable. And so
Yeah.
um, so here we are. And then I was traveling quite a bit last year, and there
Yeah, I
might be some people
remember.
out there. Yeah, went to Israel and Washington, and I was just busy, very busy last year, and just simply, I really didn't have time to do streams. I did a few, but just too busy. And so,
Yep.
but at the same time, because of the turmoil that transpired, and just because of just tired of arguing with people, to be honest.
Yeah.
Allah says in
You
the
get
Quran,
burnt out.
it gets old, man. And so, Allah says in the Quran to invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and kind words, and argue with them in ways that are best and most gracious. He doesn't say that you're not going to have arguments, but do it in a way that's best and most gracious. Do it with debate with decency, and just present your side, and don't do it with the insults and all those things. Don't do that, because then you become like the hypocrites who engage in those types of behaviors all the time, and try to pat themselves on the back, claiming that they're something that they're actually not. But nevertheless, I just felt like it was I needed a break anyway. So 2022 was kind of like a breather for me, that I like, just, you know what,
And you
my
did
life.
in-person debates too that I watched, which was really great.
Yeah,
I enjoyed those.
I did have some in-person debates, and I so it allowed me the opportunity on a personal level just to step back and get out of the line of fire per se, and refocus on what am I trying to achieve with my life. I don't do this for fame and publicity. I don't, I'm talking about these issues because if you sit with me in person on a daily basis, or if you're around me, we're probably going to talk about Islam at some point. It's because I like doing this, because it's I feel like Islam is a gift from our Creator, and so I feel like, for one, it is our obligation as Muslims to engage in dawah, and to invite people to Islam in a peaceful level. And Allah says, let there be no compulsion in religion, so they can make their choice after that. But at least we can present Islam to people in a decent manner. But then I start seeing Muslims attacking Muslims, and me being attacked by other Muslims, and it's like then the
And
atheists.
the same thing happens in the atheist community as well, where one atheist will disagree with another atheist, and the next thing you know, we got a big whole head of drama, and it's just like, can't we just all get along? Like, what's
Yeah,
wrong with just getting along? Why do we have to argue and be mean to each other? Why can't we just have productive conversation? You
absolutely,
know?
absolutely. Just fruitless, So
Mhm.
so I just basically just took a break. I was traveling during 2022 on I'm an inspector with the American Petroleum Institute, so I had contracts to fulfill, and just really busy. But it was
Mhm.
convenient as well, because I needed to take a break anyway. It's like,
Yeah.
enough is enough for a period. And
Mhm.
um, but what you find is that when you do come back, nothing's changed, and oftentimes I feel like it's gotten worse, in that
Yeah.
you have this person who's of the same faith creating a video attacking that person of the same faith, and vice versa, and you're just going back, and one person trying to make the other person look foolish, and trying to undermine what they're doing in their lives, and that person responds, and it's just like, what's the point? In my mind, when I consider this, obviously I believe in the day of judgment, that we're going to stand before our Creator and be accountable for everything that we've said and done in this life. And so I think, man, do these people not ponder and reflect on that? Because I do. I don't want to stand before my Creator and have to answer for backbiting, and answer for just insulting for likes and subscribers and views, and which that's never my intention, ever, ever, ever.
Mhm.
If of course, we invite people to subscribe and like and share the videos, just because
Mhm.
of the
Well, that's the nature of the platform, right?
yeah, it's the platform. But what's the main objective is to reach more people, from our standpoint, to share Islam with these people. And so the
Mhm.
bigger the platform, the bigger the audience, obviously, and the bigger the effectiveness, hopefully, and inshallah, if we're doing a decent job. And but when the criticisms come, and the false accusations come, and the personal attacks, and people start attacking your family, and it just gets it's ridiculous.
Well, that's one
It's
thing
just
I've really noticed about, like, and this is coming from all sides, all religions. Every time people get into discussions about religion, is a lot of times, um, a good chunk of people have a hard time separating the actual argument from the personal attacks. And I've had interactions with other people where it's like, if I'm criticizing your religion or whatever it is that your argument is, I'm not trying to make a personal attack because I think you're stupid or, whatever. But a lot of people can't seem to separate the two. When I'm addressing and criticizing your argument, that doesn't mean that I'm sitting here criticizing you as a person.
Yeah,
And that makes a lot of people upset and angry and hurt. And then that's where a lot of the argument comes in, because people can't separate the two.
absolutely. It boils down to people are putting their emotions into their belief system. Obviously, that's just what we do as human beings, and are unable to control those emotions when there's a backlash against it, or there's when it's put on when it's questioned in some regard, and they just automatically start feeling as though it's a personal attack because they're trying to deal with the inner turmoil of someone questioning their belief system. And we've all done that because we're all human beings. We've done that.
Yeah.
But this is why I always try to go back to Allah saying in the Quran, again, as I mentioned a second ago, invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and kind words, and argue with them in ways that are best and most gracious. So part of that wisdom is having sabr, having patience, and knowing what to say and what not to say, and realizing that, especially on streams like this where people are watching, we're influencing one another constantly. And, like on Clubhouse, by example, you have very offensive things being said on there. And it's more, it seems to me that sometimes I still go in just for a few minutes, literally just for a few minutes. And usually people see my name and automatically, I see we got Kenny Bomer in the room. I want to, just here comes the nonsense. But sometimes when they don't notice that I'm there, I'm just listening to the rhetoric and the bantering back and forth, and from both sides, it's just offensive. It's just like you people aren't really doing anything constructive. What it is you're enjoying the fact that you feel like you're putting someone else's intellect in question, that trying to present yourself as though you're more knowledgeable than they are, but really you're just being rude. I mean, when it boils down to it, you're just being hateful. And if we can't engage in a decent conversation, what's interesting, you mentioned the couple of in-person debates that I had. My most recent was with Matt Dillahunty. I'm not sure if you've seen that debate or not.
I did, yeah. Well, I saw most of it.
You see most of it. So I've had multiple people since then, during that, right after the debate, and since then, people contacted me via email and messages and so forth, and telling me, praise be to Allah, telling me that that they respect me for my demeanor, that I'm very pleasant and trying to be. They appreciate my being trying to be decent, and that's something that I've made many mistakes in the past regarding, being guilty of also getting, we're human, we're not going to be perfect, but getting caught up in my emotion during a discussion or during a debate or whatever, and being a little more aggressive than I need to be, and so that's something that I've always been conscious of, and something that I always want to make sure that I'm presenting Islam in the best way that I can, and doing the best that I can. Now, there may be someone who does it better. There may be someone who's more eloquent, has more knowledge. That's fine. But I have to do the best that I can do, and if my objective is to try to present Islam in the best manner that I can, then that means that I've got to do so following the advice of Allah, and do it with wisdom and kind words, and argue with people in ways that are best and most gracious. And so that's what I try to put in place. And one of the people that I admire from the Muslims, amongst the Muslims, is Dr. Shabir Ali, and his demeanor during debates, and even before I started engaging in these debates and so forth, and watching debate after debate after debate. He's a person who I thought, man, this gentleman. Of course, I know him on a personal level now and so forth, but back then I didn't know him at all. Never dreamed that I would ever have a discussion with him, for that matter. And but I thought, man, if I ever do this, this is the character that I want to display. I want to be
Mhm.
I want to be kind and welcoming to to criticisms and also just polite in my delivery of what I'm trying to get across and so forth.
Mhm.
And that's the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. He was always kind to people who were questioning Islam and so forth. And that's the pattern that we should we should
Mhm.
follow. And
And it's a learning process too, right? So, I mean, even though, we're getting older, we're in our middle age now, you're still learning every day, right? So you're learning how to manage yourself, you're learning new things, and we never stop learning. So it's okay that we trip up sometimes, it's going to happen, but you're still learning something along the way.
that's right. That's right. So yeah, it's been a journey,
Mhm.
and I still like I'm this year. Of course, we don't know what the future holds. I do have some inspection contracts already lined up. Matter of fact, I'm actually in the middle of one now. And but with that being said, I've got these books. That's the other aspect of uh, taking a break. I was able to get another book published and um, have other books coming this year and so forth. So it allows me time to keep doing what I'm doing, but step away from all the controversy and all the negativity, and
Mhm.
just kind of focus on, when I open my mouth, I want to say something that's constructive. And uh, if I can't do it in an actual conversation with people, because you know, I'm not trying to put all the blame on someone else, but if the vast majority of the discussions are going to turn hostile, and if it's going to be personal attack after personal attack and all that, it's like, I'll find another method to share Islam with people, and obviously I try to do that through the books
Mhm.
and so
You
forth.
have to
And so
focus on what's positive for you.
that's right. That's
And
right.
what's going to bring you the most positivity in your life too, right?
That's
Because if you
right.
always focus on the negative, you're always going to find the negative, and that ultimately is going to end up hurting you, right? So
Yeah.
you have to focus on your goals and focus on what makes you happy and what makes you feel productive, and you know, the positive.
Yeah. Some of these things, the personal attack and so forth, really hurt me on a deep level. In that, while I was going through the process of trying to establish the Consider This TV network. Matter of fact, I want to mention that we're streaming live through Coventry Faith Foundation, also O People of the Book, and we're going live through Dawa TV on Facebook and so forth. So, anyways, trying to bring these people together and these channels together to benefit all of us and try to establish a strong Dawa uh, group that we help one another. Um, I started finding that uh, there was so much negativity that just, I don't know, just got distracted. So I'm not sure exactly where I want to go with the channel and so forth. Um, so this is kind of testing the waters for what the future holds, and but I want to have peaceful, meaningful, and fruitful discussions. I don't want to be arguing with people, and you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
time is valuable, man, and I don't want to waste my time in this life.
And the older
Uh,
you get, the faster it goes.
yeah. So, um, someone's telling me that the
Yeah, you have chat off on a
try to
bunch of your
change
channels, so the live
the
chat on
because
Kenny Bomer
someone's
is not
saying
working. Uh-oh.
chat off on my channel.
Yeah, when I was looking at the live chat
Away from it.
on your main channel, it says it was off.
Yeah, I just changed the setting because
Let me just
I
check.
came across. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I changed the setting just yesterday or late last night because I, I was just looking through everything. It's been a while since I messed with it, and I've seen the tab that says is this content made for children? I thought, well, we're not saying anything that children couldn't watch. And I said that it is made for children, but I guess, but
It could be
I
just
don't know.
a setting that you clicked
I
on and
changed
not
it. So
realized it.
let me try to change it. No, I clicked on it on purpose. I changed it on purpose. But let
Okay.
me just try to change it real quick so people can.
Yeah, content for kids on
Yeah, I
YouTube
changed
is
it.
very strict when it comes to comments now. So they don't allow live chat, they don't allow comments, they don't allow playing over top of other apps. Like
Oh,
they've really buckled down on what the rules are for kids' videos.
okay. Direct my content. Okay, so let me just try to change this real quick. I'm not exactly sure where I was at with it, but
Well, my husband just messaged me
for
on
people who are
Facebook
on
and
that
said that if
channel.
you want to turn the chat back on, you'll have to restart the stream.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so anyone who's watching on my channel, consider Islam Live with Kenny Bomer. You just go to the regular or the main Consider Islam, or excuse me, Consider This TV channel, and you can watch it there, and you can comment in the chat there. I do apologize about that because I changed the.
I noticed that a certain someone also already found the channel and, and made a comment.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these people, man, they have a lot of growing up to do, and I question if they ever question what they're trying to accomplish in life and what their intentions are.
Yeah. You got to wonder
So
where their focus is when it comes to like what is it that you want to make out of your life right now, and what are you intentionally focused on, right? And like I said, you go out and you search out the negative, you're going to find the negative, and that negativity is going to end up hurting you in the end, right? So you've got to
absolutely.
seek out things that make you happy and are positive.
Absolutely. My thing is that I don't like to bring yesterday's problems and drama into today. We don't need to do that.
Yep.
You can leave that stuff behind, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to bring yesterday's turmoil into today. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
What's the objective behind that?
Mm-hmm.
If you had drama yesterday and it's come and gone, and there's been days in between, then why just suddenly days or weeks or months later do you want to maybe years later do you want to just bring it all up again and try to cause problems again? And so alhamdulillah, people are going to answer for that on the day of judgment. With that being said, so Mindy, let's get into a bit of a deeper conversation for a bit. And
Sure.
so tell me, so are you atheist or are you agnostic?
That's the thing. And that's something that I've kind of been playing with for the last probably 6 months or so, about labels and how important they are. And I still don't believe in anything supernatural or any gods of any kind, of any religion. I don't know for sure, so I guess that would more make me agnostic than anything. Because I'm totally willing to change my stance on what I believe if I'm presented with evidence that convince me otherwise. But the label of atheist seems to have such a negative connotation with it. And I've seen a lot of negativity, even in my real life and everyday life, about labeling myself an atheist, that I kind of wanted to step away from that. So to be honest, I don't really know what I would label myself as now. I've been exploring a lot of pagan roots and history, more along the lines of like witchcraft and Wiccan and that history, in the sense of, not because I believe that there's other gods out there, or that I believe that there's a god on the moon or the sun or anything like that, but more of using it as for like meditation and personal reflection and, you know, just enhancing me and how getting to know myself better and things like that. And this is the kind of thing that I connect with the best. And it focuses a lot on nature and the world around us and your own personal attitude and how you view life and view other people. And that's been a really positive thing for me.
Well, from a Muslim standpoint, you've heard me discuss, and I'm sure you probably heard other Muslims discuss what's called fitra. You remember that word, fitra?
It sounds familiar, but you're going to have to
Yeah.
refresh my memory on what it is.
So fitra is what we believe is the natural disposition that the human being is born with, that instinctively tells someone that there's, we have an instinct that we believe there's something greater out there, that even if we can't explain it, we just have a natural inclination that that there is something greater. Let's put it like that. There's something greater. And so when I hear you talk about this, and I've always thought this about you in regards to the fact that you were coming to these streams and you had this natural desire within yourself to engage in these types of discussions for whatever reason, it's still, I believe, a part of the natural disposition that you were born with, that's God given. Obviously, we didn't create ourselves. And so from my perspective and from a Muslim perspective, and how we're created, and knowing that God gives us this disposition, that I've always sensed that about you. Now, you may totally reject that idea, but to me, when I hear you say, "I'm not sure," I can't be sure, and you still you have an interest in engaging in these types of discussions. It's still that fitra, that natural disposition that has a natural curiosity about whether or not there's a God or not, and looking at nature and all these things. Well, this is part of the fitra. This is part of the natural disposition that our Creator has given us, and that Allah says in the Quran that will show them our signs in the universe and within themselves until they know that this truth is from their Lord, that this is real. And so, many things of the signs of Allah in the Quran are referring to things in nature and causing us to ponder and reflect on nature. And I'm sure you heard me and Matt Dillahunty, who's a very, very polished debater, to say the least.
Yeah, he's very experienced in the debate, whereas I am still absolutely 3 years later, still absolutely terrible at it.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're not, and you and I aren't here to debate by no means. We're just talking, but part of my argument within the debate was looking at things within the Quran, signs within the science. The Quran is not a book of science; it's a book of signs. But in those signs are references to things within nature and within the human body and the human disposition. And so those are things that we, because we're human, because we're born with this natural disposition, that we naturally incline to look into regarding a creator. And so I'm not surprised at all that you look at nature and trying to put, basically sounds like trying to put a puzzle together that which we all are trying to do, trying to get all the pieces that we can to make this picture of life come into focus, and trying to figure this thing out. But I look at this as a mercy from our Creator, in that we are born with this disposition to look at nature and to look at things around us, and to ponder and reflect. And this is what Allah tells us to do in the Quran, to ponder and reflect on these things. And so, yeah, I'm actually happy to hear you question if you're actually would be categorized as an atheist or not, because that's an indicator that it's and I'm trying to say this in a non-patronizing way, but to me it's a good sign. I'd rather you be an agnostic and say, I'm not sure if there's a God or not, than to say absolutely, which I know you kind of said that you don't believe any gods and so forth. But at the same time, I think you are I think it sounds like you might be struggling with that a little bit about trying to.
Well, I've noticed that there's, for me personally, that there's two different types of atheists. Is that there's atheists that are absolutely convinced that there is no God and that there's absolutely nothing that would ever convince them that there ever was, and they're just kind of staunch in their belief and that like that's it. There's no God. Everybody else that believes a God is stupid. Um, and me personally, if there is a God out there, I want to know. So I'm going to
Yeah.
keep exploring and I'm going to keep learning and I'm going to do like just in this last year alone, I've started trying to learn as much as I can about theoretical physics and space and the universe because all that stuff is really, really interesting, you know? So
Yes.
like I sit here and go, if there is a God out there, then I want to know. And
Yeah.
if you just sit here and say, no, there's no God, and you don't look for anything, then you're never going to find the answers, right? Because you've already made up your mind yourself. So I like going out there and exploring. I haven't found anything that's convinced me yet,
Hmm.
but I'm doing all that I can to try and learn and grow and explore that.
Yeah. And that to me, when I hear you say that, that's great because it's still the fitra at work. It's still the the God-given instinct to seek out this information at work. And so we have this opportunity until the day that we die, obviously. And so that's it's a music to my ears in, as far as
Well,
I'm
and then
concerned.
that's when will know for sure, right? Like,
Yeah,
but there's nobody that can come back and tell us that. So we
that's
still,
true.
while we're alive, we have to keep exploring and learning as much as we possibly can and then come to our own conclusions.
Yeah.
But
So
there's certain people that are just kind of shut off on both sides of the fence that are completely shut off from exploring the possibilities. And I think that's going to hurt you in the end, really.
yeah. So speaking of nature, one of the verses of the Quran, Allah swears by the sun in Surah Shamsi, and um, he's swearing by the sun because as great as the sun is, the creator of that sun would be even more great, right? So when we look around in nature and we have a beautiful world that we're living in physically, sometimes it's not so good on a human level, but the physical world that we live in is beautiful. And as great as it is, and the complexity of how everything works and so forth is beautiful. It's magnificent. Well, if there's a creator in heaven, then of course that creator would be greater than all of that creation combined, obviously. And you looking into space, and I know me and Matt Dillahunty had a discussion about the sun and the moon being in their own orbits, and that's something that's been confirmed by science and so forth. But mentioned in the Quran all these centuries ago, 1400 years ago, and but so these are signs that we ponder and reflect on. These are, in matter of fact, this is our Creator telling us to do these things and encouraging mankind to ponder and reflect on these things. So I'm not surprised at all that you do that. So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
So the question itself might sound a little odd at first, but there's let me ask you the comparison.
Okay.
What do you think is greater, a greater creation? I'm going to try to pick the lowest living thing that I can imagine or think of, rather. And I think the lowest thing I could imagine would be a maggot. Maggots
Okay.
are pretty nasty, but
Hmm.
what do you think is a greater creation, a maggot or the space shuttle?
Greater creation in what sense?
Just in its every bit of its design. Whatever constitutes the creation of a maggot, is that greater than any design that mankind can create? The space shuttle going into space is pretty. It's got to be one of the most
That's
magnificent feature or creations of
It's
man.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think I can really pick out of the two because they're so very different, right? So
yeah,
like for example, a maggot, somebody's going to look at a maggot and think, "Oh, it's ew, gross, it's disgusting." But when you look at a maggot and its role in the life cycle and, you know, like a maggot can be amazing in the medical field, right? Because back in the day, before they had antibiotics and all that stuff, they could put maggots on a wound and it would eat all of the dead flesh and help keep a person healthy from losing a limb, or um, or just look at how it's in just in the animal kingdom, and how they become food for other animals. So it has like a really important role
Yeah.
in life itself. And then then take a look around and turn around and look at the space shuttle. Like, that is a testament to humans and how far we've come in our logic and reasoning, and our ability to explore the universe around us, and that we have been able to design these things and create these things so we can go out and explore the world, right? So they're I don't see them as on the same plane and being able to say which one is greater or not, because they are both amazing in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason I asked that is because I don't think it'd be possible, as great as the space shuttle is. I mean, that's a great feat of mankind. And if there's a God and creator in heaven, then he, as the creator of the human being, would have given the human being the capacity and the ability to achieve and to create themselves. Not create themselves on create another human being, obviously, but to create space shuttle and the things that we're discussing. But a human being would never have the ability to create a maggot. It could never create a maggot. And as you mentioned, the maggot, as low a life form as it is, it plays such a prominent role in the
ecosystem.
in the world. Yeah,
Mhm.
it plays a very, very prominent role. And that's what I was trying to think of, the lowest life form that I could imagine. And I guess it would be a maggot. And although I know there's things smaller than a maggot, obviously we break it down to atoms and all those things, but
Mhm.
on something living, which I guess atoms would be categorized as living as well, in a
Mhm.
sense. They're living organisms, but as far as
Don't mind me for a second. I'm just trying to
sure,
readjust.
sure,
I'm
sure, I
still here
understand.
though.
Okay, but a maggot, a human being would never be able to create a maggot. And so when you consider that, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so if there's a God and creator in heaven, he's created a maggot that plays such a vital role in the ecosystem. And then he's also created the human being, and also given the human being, as mentioned in the Quran, as the greatest of his creation. He says clearly that the human being is the greatest of his creation, because of the complexity of the human body. Not only that, not only the physical aspect of it, but the fact that we have the ability to think and reason, and we can communicate so clearly, unlike any other living creature. We are able to
Well, there's lots of animals
create
out there that
ourselves.
can communicate with each other. Just we don't have
Yeah,
the ability to understand that communication yet fully. So that
yeah,
doesn't
no, I
necessarily
realize
mean
that.
that their communication is less complex than ours.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying
Mhm.
that we take that ability to communicate with one another, and then are able to create something like the space shuttle. I mean, that's amazing. That's an amazing
Mhm.
feat. That we obviously, if we can't create a maggot, we can't create ourselves. As a matter of fact, this is one of the questions that Allah mentions in the Quran regarding people who question His existence, and asking them, "Did you create yourselves? Could you create yourself?" Obviously, we can't create ourselves, um, and we can't create a maggot, the lowest life form, living life form that I can think of. Um, we can't do that, but we have the ability to communicate with one another to the degree that we can create a space shuttle and all the wonderful things that mankind has been able to achieve, the internet and all these things. It's
Mhm.
amazing. So I just, I ask these questions just to present different perspectives and try to encourage thought, obviously, and to ponder and reflect on the fact that, um, a maggot, if a human being could create a maggot, that would be pretty amazing. And I don't know what all the internal workings of a maggot is, and the fact that we're talking about maggot is a little bit funny, but but it's really it's a complex creature within itself.
Mhm.
It plays a role in it. How I'm sure there's some scientists who have done some studies on what they do, but how they do it, I'm not sure to what extent they've been able to examine the internal workings of a maggot. But
Mhm.
surely the maggot didn't create itself. Um, where did it come from? The cells that make up the maggot and everything in existence, they didn't create themselves. So where did they come from? To me, it points to a designer. It points to a creator. Um, and so I just that's one of the questions that I wanted to present.
Mhm.
Another thing, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I
Okay,
was just going to
another
address
thing.
a comment that was in the side chat about
Okay,
EA
sure, go ahead.
Justin from EA Dawa, and I don't interact with Justin anymore.
From EA Dawa. I'm trying to
Mhm.
think. Do I know who that brother is?
Oh, I can't remember the Islamic name that he chose for himself off the top of my head, but it's EA Dawa. He used to be the empathetic atheist. He was an atheist, and then
Oh,
he became a Muslim.
did you know? Did you know him when he was an atheist?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
He was one of the first atheists that I really interacted with on YouTube. He was one of the first handful of ones that actually brought me to YouTube, and encouraged me to start up my own channel when I was interested. Because when I first started posting on my YouTube channel, I had just posted the discussions that I'd had with you. And then I started kind of reaching out to other atheists. Neil, the 604 atheist, who's a Canadian, is another one that I reached out with. And Justin was one of the first few that I interacted with. Khalil, that's what his name is. Khalil Allah.
Khalil.
Or,
Oh, yeah, I know who the brother
yeah.
is. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've been on the channel. I've only been on there a couple of times. But so let me ask you, how did you, when you first discovered, did he give any inclination that he was considering Islam?
No, I
While
didn't.
you,
I didn't really get to know him all that well. I did watch a lot of his shows and things like that, so I don't really know him like that personally. It's just we never really hit it off. We never really became close. And when he became a Muslim, there was some things that I was a little iffy about the way he was acting with other people, and I just kind of decided that he wasn't having the type of interactions that were really comfortable for me. So I just kind of cut off contact because we were friends on Facebook and stuff like that, and we chatted every once in a while. But um, yeah, when he became a Muslim and I saw how he was behaving with some other atheists, I didn't really like it, and it wasn't really my place to step in and tell him how to behave. So I just kind of backed off, and we haven't
sure.
talked since.
Okay. So how did you? What did you think? How did you take it when you first heard? Matter of fact, if you don't mind me asking, how did you find out that he accepted Islam?
There was some discussion because he was part of an atheist because atheist kind of community that we had on YouTube. So there were several other atheists who streamed on a regular basis who knew Justin as well. And then there was a discussion on Facebook about it. Um, and I don't know, it really kind of um I guess when I first found out, I wanted to know what it was that convinced him, what changed his mind, because he came across to me as somebody who was very atheist and was very kind of set in his beliefs at first. So I was really curious about what it was that changed his mind.
Hmm.
And I went looking for that answer and I tried to find it, and I never really got a complete straight answer about what it was that was so convincing to him. Um,
Hmm.
but I didn't really explore it as much as I probably could have.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I don't know much about the brother, so I had no clue that he was an atheist before. I don't think.
Yeah, he used to be
Uh,
the empathetic atheist.
so did he have a channel then?
Yeah, he actually changed his
Oh,
EA Dawa channel used to be the empathetic atheist. I'm not sure if he still has that material on his channel, but if you go back further, you can see that he used to have atheist shows where he would talk to theists, both like Muslim and Christian and, all different faiths of people that deconverted and became atheist and kind of did like interviews and stuff like that.
very interesting. But
Mhm.
how long ago was it that he accepted Islam? I guess within the last couple of years then.
I believe it was in early 2021. I could be wrong about that. It could be the end of 2020, but because I had known about him as an atheist for probably about a year when then he turned around and converted. But I'm not 100% on that. I know it's been in like the last year and a half.
Yeah. When you questioned what the motivation was, along what lines was it? Was it something in science, or what was it?
It was an argument. I think it was the Kabbalah argument, I believe. I can't quite remember exactly what it was. But it was more of along the lines of like, because it was very philosophical. It was philosophical reasoning. And I guess he got to a point with religious apologetics, basically, of how he couldn't argue his way out of a creator existing, regardless of what religion this creator was from. He started off with the basis of there has to be a creator in the universe, and then just kind of expanded from there. That's how I understood it. I could be completely wrong on that. So
Yeah.
Justin, if you're watching, I apologize if I get that wrong, but that's what I understood.
I think he is. I see E.A. Dower in the chat. Mindy, would you be opposed to having a discussion with him? If you'd rather just keep it between us, that's fine. But
That's
I don't know if
sure
the
if
brother.
you. That's totally up to you. I've only got about another 45 minutes or so that I can hang around. So
Okay.
I
Well, I
have
just
got
found this interesting. 'Cause I
children
had no
to
clue that
feed.
I had no clue that he was atheist before. I don't know much
Yeah.
about the brother, but Brother Khalil, if you're watching, obviously I think you are watching. You said E.A. Dower, right? E.A.
Yeah.
Dower.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's there. He is there in the side chat. I
Yeah, I
didn't
seen
realize.
that. I didn't know that either. But Brother Khalil, assalamu alaikum. If you'd like to join the panel, feel free to do so. I think it'd be an interesting interaction, to say the least. So while we see if he joins the panel or not, another thing I wanted to present, Mindy, is I was considering. I mentioned Mount Rushmore in my book, Consider Islam, and talking about a totally different issue when I mentioned it. But I was thinking about this this morning, and I was thinking if a scientist, by example, tried to make the argument, I'm just putting a what's the word, theoretical argument together here. But if, let's say, there was a scientist of some kind who made the claim that the four faces that we see on Mount Rushmore happened after billions of years, and these faces just appeared after billions of years. Is that something that would sound logical?
So are you saying, are you trying? Okay, let me just see if you're trying to get this right. So the faces that are carved into Mount Rushmore, are you saying that what if they just appeared there rather than were man-made?
Mm-hmm.
My first thought in learning that would be, let's do some investigation about how, why, let's try and learn from it as much as I wouldn't make assumptions off it right away. Because there's so much in this universe that right now that we don't understand. So I wouldn't want to try to jump to conclusions. I'd want to do as much investigation as possible to find out what we could about it and how they appeared there. Now, I know some people would automatically jump to the conclusion and say, oh, it was a god that did it, or, oh, it was just a result of natural erosion. There's so many different possibilities that it could be that I wouldn't be able to have an answer. I'd be like, I don't know. Let's find out. Let's investigate. Let's learn as much as we can and then come to a conclusion.
Yeah, well, that's a logical way to do it. I see the brother he's coming to the stream. Okay. All right. So let me add him here. We'll get back to my point about Mount Rushmore here shortly. Brother Khalil, assalamu alaikum, brother. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing fine. I didn't realize that you and Mindy know one another. You and I barely know one another. We've only been on the stream together a couple of times, but I had no clue that you were an atheist before. I didn't realize that. As a matter of fact, I didn't know if you were a Christian. I didn't know what you were, but she had mentioned that you had a YouTube channel before accepting Islam, and that she was, she knew who you were and so forth, and I guess you knew one another. And Mindy's my friend, and obviously we believe things differently, but she's been my friend for a couple of years now, and so I thought it'd be interesting. Obviously, you were watching. I didn't realize you were watching, but I don't know. I'd just be
Somebody sent
interested
me a
in hearing
message
you interact.
and said, "Hey, your name is being mentioned on Cove FF." I was like, "Oh, okay." Let me jump
Okay,
on.
okay,
What's going on?
yeah. So
Oh yeah, someone had suggested in a comment that we do a discussion, and I was like, "Hey, I've met Justin before. I know." So
yeah, that's how it came up.
Where
Yeah.
did we meet before? Where did we have a discussion?
when I first started my YouTube channel, you had the Empathetic Atheist channel, and yours and Neil the 604 Atheist were two of the first channels that I started watching. And I think you had tweeted out my channel when I first started it, and I did like my first stream or whatever.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Cool.
Mhm.
I guess we go back then.
We do. We didn't really interact a whole lot because I kind of got overwhelmed in the beginning with so many people and so many streams. So we didn't, I don't think I ever got a chance to be on your show. I think we had talked about it, but same with Neil. I had tried to be on a bunch of people's channels, and I just never ended up doing it. I think yours was one of them.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and a lot of times with my guests, I typically tried to have like people who disagreed with me. So if we were both atheists at the time, then yeah. But I mean, I've had like bigger names on, like Aaron Ra. I've had Matt Dillahunty, Seth Andrews. I've had Michael Shermer on the show before. But yeah, brother Kenny, I was an atheist for like 12 years.
Wow. Yeah, I had no clue about that. So, brother, what was it? Me and Mindy were talking about it. What was it that led you to accept Islam?
Well, I would have to say she's correct in it being philosophical based. Very, very philosophical. I need justifications for why I believe what I do. I don't just believe things off of faith. That's the whole reason I left Christianity, is because everybody told me, hey, you just got to have faith. We don't have answers to these questions. You just got to believe.
I'm going to sorry to interrupt. I'm going to step away for 2 seconds. I will be right back.
Sure.
Okay. All
So
right.
yeah, I basically, I remember her profile picture. Cool. All right. Got it.
Okay.
So yeah, I had a philosophical background, and was attempting to basically debunk Islam. I was trying to figure out what I could do, because I've already taken care of Christianity, Judaism. Basically, they got their own special group of people, and they don't proselytize, so I don't even have to worry about them. And they have the Torah, which I found contradictions within even the first 5 books of the Bible. So I didn't even entertain Judaism, and I went straight to Islam. And I said, okay, what can I do to debunk Islam? So I looked up a whole bunch of arguments and tried to, every day for over a year and a half, I was actually debating as an atheist with the Tap brothers. I met Jake the Muslim Metaphysician and Brother Sharif and Yusuf Ponders. I met all those brothers before they ever got together and made a YouTube channel. I've known them personally since about a year and a half, I would say year and a half to 2 years before I took my Shahada. And I was every day in Facebook groups debating with them, trying to argue against Islam. And every single time I brought a problem, it was solved. And then we got down to the very fundamental nature of like the origins of the universe, or the origins of existence. And they made arguments, logical, rational arguments for the existence of something that's truly necessary. And once we were agreed that there's something that's necessary, we tried to figure out what kind of properties this necessary thing has. And it got into what's called a contingency argument, to where we argue that everything is dependent upon this one thing. And this one thing, to not be limited in any way, has to have omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence, a mind, a will, things of this nature. And at the end of the day, that's typically the general idea of what God is.
Yeah.
So, after a while, we argued that, and I eventually got to the point of being a general theist. Once I was a general theist, then I was like, okay, so I'm here. Why Islam? Why is I can be right here and not accept that Islam is true?
True.
And that's where we got into the miracles. That's where we got into the claims that are made in the Quran, things of that nature. I actually had, just for fun, memorized and was able to recite with really crappy tajweed, but I was able to recite like 3 different short surahs of the Quran, even when I was an atheist. So that's in short basically how I came to Islam.
Alhamdulillah. Brother, what made you? That's interesting. What made you, as an atheist, memorize those 3 surahs?
Well, for one, I believe, regardless of any religious belief, I believe that the recitation is very, very beautiful. And definitely, just like some of my secular songs that I used to listen to, very anti-religious songs, had the hairs on my arms stand up, and like you get that feeling with certain songs. The same thing would happen to me when I would listen to the Quran. So, but I wasn't about to use that as a basis for I should become a Muslim or I should come to Islam because the Quran sounds beautiful. Like that's not rational to me. Like I can't come to a belief just because of that. But it did touch me in some sort of way. Like I did get a certain sensation from listening to Quran.
What's interesting is that there's I can't remember the man's name, but there's a hadith where the man was plotting to kill the Prophet, peace be upon him, and he heard the Prophet reciting the Quran in the background. He heard him reciting it, and just hearing it. Of course, he was an Arabic speaker, so he could understand the content of what was being recited as well. But just upon hearing the verses recited, it touched him to a point that he went from trying to come and plot to kill the Prophet, peace be upon him, to actually accepting Islam. So it's not a surprise. Matter of fact, there's been a number of people who there's videos on YouTube where they play the Quran for Christians and people of other faiths and so forth, and it just brings tears to their eyes because of the beauty of the recitation. So it's appealing. Yeah, and there's a reason why Allah has chosen the Arabic language in particular. As a matter of fact, Allah says in the Quran that it's surely that He that made the Quran easy to remember. And part of that easy remembrance is the eloquence of the delivery of the recitation. And the rhythmic pattern behind it, and it's like a song. It's music to the ears. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
No instruments needed, but just the human voice, the creation of Allah. The human voice is able to recite the words of our Creator in a manner in which it draws people's attention to it, and it's just beautiful, truly beautiful. So listen, I'm pleased to know that there was some type of matter of fact, Mindy, I'm not sure if when you went off the stepped away for a bit, that when he seen your photo that he recognized your
Yeah,
photo.
I heard that just before I ran away. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so happy and pleased to know that the two of you have had some sort of interactions in the past, and the fact that the brother was an atheist and is now a Muslim. Praise be to Allah for that. Because, brother, what Mindy may not realize it, but I've been talking to her about the fitrah. She didn't remember initially when I brought it up today. But that natural disposition that we have. Do you, when you ponder and reflect on your eventual acceptance of Islam, do you ponder and reflect on the fact that the fitrah was at work within your life, and that even though you didn't know what that was, but do you see it now? We can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, I can make a connection to it because the fitrah is what I consider like an internal compass that points towards the truth. Some call it some type of intuition. Some people, just call it our natural instinctual rationale. This disposition that points us towards the truth. And I believe my fitrah was at work when I said, this whole Trinity thing, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't reasonable.
Absolutely.
This doesn't match with my natural, my natural disposition. And there are certain things that seem to tug against that natural disposition. But when I looked at Islam and I dove into the oneness of Allah, right? And really dove into Tawheed, everything matched up with my logical reasoning. Like, if there truly is this necessary thing, I have arguments to substantiate why something is necessary. This whole infinite regression possibility doesn't match up with my fitra. Like, there is this necessary thing, and then we can just move forward with rational arguments. And these rational arguments don't necessarily prove something or demonstrate it empirically to be true. But if we are to accept certain definitions, it would be the most rational, reasonable thing to believe in. And even as an atheist, that's what I was always inclined to asking, not how people could demonstrate their God to me, but why is it rational or reasonable to hold the belief that you do? Because I believe we're all human beings. I think we could all be wrong about something that we think we know. I mean, I could be wrong about anything that I believe.
Yeah.
I believe with psychological certainty that Islam is the truth, but me as a fallible human being, I can't claim philosophical certainty in something unless I'm omniscient. Unless I have all the knowledge, I can't claim that I'm absolutely right. So that's kind of where I stick, is what I think is most rational and reasonable to believe, based off of argumentation, based off of what I would consider it matches with my fitra.
Yeah. So, Mindy, I know your time is limited. Do you have any questions that you might want to present to Khalil while he's here? And anything that you might want to have asked him in the past that you were not able to do so?
No, because I think he kind of answered the main question that I have, is like, what flipped that switch from atheist to believer. Basically, that's because that's something that I have always from the start always struggled with, and why I have never been a believer in my entire life is because there's never been that one thing that has actually convinced me that any God is real. And it's not for lack of trying, right? Because I went to church, I've studied what I can, I've asked the questions, and there's just been nothing that's ever kind of clicked for me saying, yeah, this is real. That's, and ultimately there's other people out there that, oh, well, this is what convinced me. This is what convinced me. And I'm like, that's great. But unless I can find something that convinces me, I can't say that I believe in a God, because then I'm just pretending, right? And I went to a Christian church for, well, 4 years total, but it was 2-year intervals, because I tried it twice. And ultimately I stopped going because I felt like I was defrauding the people that was there, because I was like, I have taken all the steps that I can to try and find this belief in myself, and I can't find it, and when I'm standing in a church there and all these people actually believe, and I just felt like a big fat fraud pretending to believe in a God that I didn't actually believe in. And I still, like, I have no idea what's going to convince me, but nothing has so far. And it's not because I'm not looking, but I just haven't reached that point yet.
Have you heard me in conversation and argumentation with people on some of the
a bit? Yes.
Okay. So like I mean, if logic and reason and rationale is something that you value, I mean, I would be open to having a discussion. Maybe not exactly right now if you don't have the time. And I want to respect Brother Kenny's stream, but I stream on YouTube. I would love to have you on, and we could have a discussion, and I could present to you what convinced me, and me as a previous atheist who is a skeptic, who was truly open-minded. I was convinced of something with what I would consider rational, deductive arguments that have logical conclusions that naturally follow, that logically follow from the premises. And if I could provide that argument, I may be able to give something that is palatable to you as an atheist, that may turn some gears, may have you ponder about something that you hadn't really thought about before.
See, and the reason why I didn't really focus a lot on your story too, with following you when you first reverted to Islam, was because there was a lot of philosophical arguments being used to justify your new belief. And I am not at a point where I have enough understanding of philosophy. So a lot of the things that you guys are talking about is just kind of going over my head, right? And philosophy is a little intimidating to me. So I didn't really explore that because I didn't feel like it was something I was ready to kind of grasp. My husband has tried to explain some philosophy to me, but I still feel like it's kind of out there for me yet. I haven't really
Gotcha.
studied a lot of it.
Okay. Yeah, and I'd be more than willing to try and break it down to a level that's understandable because I mean, like when I was having these arguments, I had already had a philosophical background. I knew the jargon that they were using at that more academic level. And I understand today I even have a weakness of me speaking to people. I tend to start using some of that jargon when I'm speaking to people, and I realize that some people think I'm speaking Chinese.
Yeah, like
So
I just learned, like I've only known about logical fallacies for like the last year and a half, right? So
Okay.
I'm really, really new to philosophy in general.
Sure.
So that's sometimes can be very intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, basically at the very bottom, like I don't even think that there's one argument that proves the existence of God. What I do is I start off with an argument that proves, okay, is there something fundamental, or do we just have a chain of things that have always been happening, right? And then if there's a cause and effect, right, and there's an infinite regression, there's always, if there's always been an effect, there's always been a cause to that effect, and that cause is an effect to another cause, and then we can just keep going back ad infinitum. The question is how do we get to this moment right now? And the way that I try and simplify that is using an analogy like you're a sniper, right? You're set up, you're ready to go. You have your target in the crosshairs, and you look to your observer and say, I'm ready to go. Can I take the shot? And he says, hold on, let me advise my supervisor. Let's get his permission. And then his supervisor needs to call his supervisor. His supervisor needs to call his supervisor, so on and so forth, with an infinite chain of supervisors needing confirmation, right? And at that point, you can beg the question, if there's an infinite amount of people that need to give permission, will the sniper ever actually take the shot? And if we conclude that no, he'd never take the shot, then you make that analogous with the cause and effect that we have in this world that we observe. And how did we ever get to this moment right now if there's been an infinite amount of things that had to happen before right now? And that's kind of how I argue against, like, if there's an infinite regression of something. And then if we can agree that there must have been something that everything else is dependent on, it goes back to this one main thing. That doesn't mean that it's a God at that point in time. I mean, you could say it's energy, you could say it's reality, you could say any number of things, and say that one thing is the most fundamental thing. That all these other things, like this mouse that I have or the pen that I hold in my hand, has some type of external explanation for how and why it's as long as it is, it's the color that it is, everything about it has an explanation. And that would make it contingent. And then you put all these contingent things into a box, and you say that set itself could be different. It could be a different way, which would make it contingent itself. So then what would logically follow from that is that set of all contingent things needs an explanation external from itself, which couldn't be another contingent thing because everything that's contingent is already in the box. So that thing that's outside, that's the explanation for the box of contingent things, has to be something that's not contingent, i.e. necessary. Still doesn't get you to God, but it can bring you to a fundamental one thing that everything else is dependent on. And then we move on from there and start talking about the properties of this thing. And I mean, it like I said, it took me 1.5 to 2 years to get through all this and to really understand it and accept it, because I kept bringing counter arguments. I would look up a Graham Oppy, one of the leading atheist philosophers, but he actually accepts the contingency argument. He believes that the necessary being or the necessary existence is the initial state of the universe. So there was the universe, or the cosmos was in this one state at the very beginning. And for time to exist, you need at least 2 states of affairs. If nothing's changing, there's not multiple states of affairs. So that the universe existed in this one state unchangedly in all of eternity past. And then the minute that it had that first change, that's when time started. That's T1. And he argues,
right, which essentially, if I'm just getting this correctly, that would be theoretically the Big Bang, when the universe started expanding.
Yeah, correct. I mean, unless you could use the same argument and run it with like a multiverse theory of some sort to state that there was there's this chain of multiverses that cause the next universe, right? This next universe causes the next universe, but it always goes back to this one initial state that caused the first universe.
Right. Okay.
So that's essentially the first argument that I use, and that's that argument summed up in a little package.
Mhm.
We could dive into that. We could have discussions about that. But if we agree upon that, then I move on to arbitrary limitations. And if this thing is truly necessary, that means by definition, how in the philosophical circles we agree upon what it means to be necessary. It means that it couldn't be different, and it doesn't have an external explanation. Those are the two factors that make something necessary.
Mhm.
And if, for example, we have energy, and I say, is it possible for something to have knowledge? And then we conclude that energy itself doesn't have knowledge. That means that it's something that it could have, but it doesn't, which means it could be otherwise. And now energy is a contingent thing. We put it in that box of contingent things, and we go out and look for the necessary existence. And we keep doing this. And from my reasoning, the only way that you can get out of this issue and find the true necessary existence is if it has knowledge, and its knowledge is unlimited. Because if it's limited, that means it could have more or less, which means it could be different, which means it's contingent. So we need to get rid of that. If this thing is truly necessary, its knowledge has to be unlimited, its power has to be unlimited, its presence has to be unlimited. It has to have some type of mind to be able to do work, to use its knowledge, to make choices, and use its power to produce tasks. And it also has to have a will to be able to make those choices. And all of these things are metaphysically possible for something to have. So the necessary thing must have these things, because they don't contradict the very nature of what a necessary being is.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, that means that this necessary thing, to be truly necessary, is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, has a mind, has a will. And that's how I define God. And that's how I got to general theism.
Okay. That's interesting. Definitely something that I want to explore.
Absolutely. But yeah, it wasn't like somebody handed me a Quran and said, this is the word of God, believe in it. Like,
Yeah.
I've had Christians say that so many times that I'm like, this isn't going to work with me, right?
Yeah.
Or
No, and that's happened to me too. I've had a lot of people hand me a Bible and say, here, this is why you should just believe it because I said so. And it's
Why
like,
should I
that
take that
doesn't
seriously?
work for me.
Yeah. Why should I take that seriously? You're just handing me a book. I'm an atheist. Like, I don't believe in God. So why are you handing me what supposedly God said when I don't even believe in God yet?
Yeah.
And that's why when I speak with atheists, I typically only want to go down this fundamental route, because if we're to talk about the morality of the Abrahamic God, or we're to talk about what it says in the Quran, the atheist must presuppose or grant that God exists to be able to talk about his holy book. If you don't believe God exists, why are we even having the discussion?
Yeah, because it's irrelevant. And I've used that in arguments before too, because a lot of people are like, well, it says so in the Quran or it says so in the Bible. And I'm like, you haven't established that a God is real yet. And his books, or what you claim are holy books, have no relevance until you've actually proven or provided proof that your God exists, because otherwise the books are meaningless.
Absolutely.
And that's a lot of my struggle, is like, there's a lot of people out there, well, this should convince you and this should convince you. And it's like, no, I haven't come across anything that's convinced me yet. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend to believe in your God because it makes you happy when I know that I'm not convinced it's real.
Correct. And you can't choose what you're convinced of either.
No. I don't have a choice in that matter. And like, if I come across it, that's great. I'll be convinced, but I haven't found it yet.
Yeah. It's like me asking Brother Kenny right now, convince yourself that you're not wearing a kufi. Can you do that? Like, no, you can't.
No.
So information, you have to be open to in taking information, and that information may or may not convince you. In my case, through the year and a half that I spoke with these Muslim philosophers, I ended up being convinced by these arguments, and I'm more than happy to change my position if someone shows me that my reasoning is flawed in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I use that as well too. Like, I am totally open to changing my mind about whether or not a God is real. But you've got to convince me first. You've got to show me. And like, even if people aren't showing me, I'm out there learning and, trying to learn as much as I can, reading books that I can, talking to people, trying to look for that. So I'm always trying to learn and open myself up to that. Just haven't come across it yet.
Great. So, Brother Khalil, so your acceptance of Islam there was nothing emotional to it. It was all based on logic and reason and philosophy, and that's the approach. Well, that's the beauty of it. In that, as you two are talking about this, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, Allah in the Quran it mentions things on a philosophical level for people who think in that regard, and mentions nature, and mentions things within the human disposition and the human body and all these things for people who are prone for that type of thinking, and also mentions things on an emotional level. So it covers the wide range of human experience, and that's one of the beauties of Islam.
No, I will say that eventually, once I did dive into the Quran and started reading it, that emotional verification was confirmed. But
Yes.
I didn't want to let the emotions drive me towards the existence of a God, right? Because I don't think that emotions, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't think that emotions should be present when logically trying to conclude a claim is true.
I totally
I
agree.
agree.
That claim is true. You can dive into it and you can say, okay, now this really jives with me. Now I have this emotional attachment. Now this is emotionally confirming what I've already logically concluded. That's fine. But you also have to realize that sometimes if you are to be shown that your logic is flawed, that those emotions are going to still try and tie you down to that position, even though you're logically shown to be incorrect.
And that's why Allah mentions in the Quran, it causes the human being to ponder, think, and reflect, and not just appeal to a blind faith, a blind belief. As we do see in Christianity, by example, we walk by faith, not by sight. Well, wait a minute, that doesn't work out for most people. Most people need to see where they're going, and logic dictates that the human being needs to understand what it is they're believing for them to fully believe what they're believing. And so logic and reason has to come first in the situation.
Especially, yeah, absolutely. I even make the argument that logic must apply to God also, because if you think about this, you have the three classical laws of logic: identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. A equals A, that's identity. So you could say, for all of eternity, has God always been God? The theist would say, yes, God has always been God. Okay, has God been God and also not God simultaneously? The answer is no. He is what he is. God is God. Sorry, my ad has going on. So has God been God and also not God simultaneously? No. Okay. And is it true that God is God? Yes. All right. Well, then God specifically falls in line with the three classical laws of logic. So when the Christian says, you disagree with the Trinitarian view because it's illogical, well, God's above logic. We'll just ask him those three questions. And if he agrees that God is God, that he's not God and not God at the same time, that he's not God and not at the same time, and that it's true that God is God, then he's just admitted that God is logical.
Yeah. Now, I do believe that for most people, obviously, logic and reason has to come first. But I do believe that as a mercy from Allah, that some people will be affected on an emotional level for them to be able to accept the existence of a creator, and that sometimes the human being needs to be broken in spirit. And I know that sounds harsh, but needs to be broken in order for them to have that appeal to something greater. So the human being has to go through some type of, for some people, not all people, but for some people, it's to the point that they have to be broken in spirit, inevitably, in order to accept the idea of crying out to something or someone saying, "Help me." There are people who are on that level, but for most people, the logic and reason comes first. But as a mercy from Allah, again, the appeal to emotion for some people is necessary, especially for someone who may, in regards to someone who already has a God conscience, or even someone who doesn't. Some people just naturally appeal to emotion. I myself do the contrary. I have to look at things from a logical perspective, and does this make sense?
Can-
And even to this very day, whenever we're talking about anything within Islam that someone presents a question that maybe I haven't thought about before or whatever, I still challenge the truth of Islam. And that's a good thing. We should keep challenging it, because
Correct.
as I keep challenging it, I keep realizing that it's more and more the truth, which makes my emotional attachment to it even stronger. So I put the logic and the reason first and say, okay, well, let me ponder and reflect on the question that you presented, and let me see if I can find the answer to it, or if what you're saying, the perspective that you're coming from, is if that's dominant over the answer to the question that you're presenting, or whatever. So I still, even in the debate with Matt Dillahunty, people ask me, something along the lines of this very question. If I found something within Islam that was contrary to truth, would I still appeal to Islam? I told them, no, I wouldn't, because it would blow my battleship out of the water if I found something that was just verifiably false about Islam. But as I keep challenging it, which is what a lot causes mankind to do, encourages mankind to do, I simply can't find anything that would dissolve that truth on any level. And so my emotional attachment to it is based on that. It confirms to me time and time again, as time keeps going, that this is something that I can truly rely upon. This is something that I can hold firm to my heart and know that this is the truth. And that's why Allah says, we'll show them our signs in the universe and within themselves until they know that this truth is from their Lord. And, when you keep looking at these things within science, people put up, they try to put up the best arguments they can and so forth. And of course, people who follow people like Matt Dillahunty and so forth, they're gonna side with him in these debates and all these things. But the logic behind what's presented is enough to drive that appeal to emotion and make it more solidified in your belief. And so it goes hand in hand. Alhamdulillah, goes hand in hand. So Mindy, how much more time do you have?
Just a couple of minutes, probably about 20 minutes more. I just wanted to address something in the chat really quickly, if that's okay with
Sure.
you. So
Sure.
I'm noticing that M5 Dunya is somebody that I have had interactions with quite a bit on this channel, quite a few times. A very negative, very attacking individual. And of course, I haven't been on the channel in months, and he's here again in the side chat making accusations. I wanted to basically say to this person, because I don't know if they're a man or a woman or whatever, but Kenny and I had a disagreement about something, a misunderstanding, and I left the channel being a mod for probably 6 to 8 months. And I was very upset, very, very, very upset, because Kenny and I had a friendship. And this person, M5 Dunya, has a lot to do with, is probably the core of the person of why we had our issues. M5 Dunya, you are one of the few people that, I'm trying to think of the best word to describe this. You molded me for a while in my opinion of what Muslims were, because of your constant personal attacks and negativity and attempt to smear me and attack me every time I tried to speak, despite the fact that I was nothing but polite to you. And your behavior is not becoming of somebody of your faith. If you want to draw someone to your faith and your belief system, and you want to welcome them, and you want to put across this impression that your God is accepting and that this is the right way to go, personally attacking someone and trying to do someone like this is not the way to do it. Because for probably a good 6 months, I was very, very angry at it, because it was M5 Dunya and there was a group of other Muslim men that would just constantly bicker and attack me and pick apart things that I was doing in my life. And I was just here to learn and have conversation and be with my friends. But you drove me away. So I just wanted to mention that maybe it'd be good to sit down and have some self-reflection about how your behavior reflects on the God that you believe in. Like, is this the impression that you want believers to have of your religion, that you're hateful and that you're mean and that you personally attack anybody that doesn't believe what you believe? Because the reason why I'm friends with Kenny, even though we have a different belief system, is because of his kindness and because of his willingness to sit down and talk to me and work things out and be an adult and be civil. But if I were to sit down with a Muslim like you and see how hateful you were, I would want nothing to do with Islam. I would write it off because I would be like, this is how hateful Muslims are. I don't want anything to do with it. So maybe it's a good time to sit down and really think about the behavior and how you conduct yourself with people that are not believers, because it's very
Alhamdulillah.
hateful.
If I could, there's something that I'd like to read from what we as Muslims call the Holy Quran.
Go ahead, brother.
This,
Go ahead.
and this is something that I struggle with myself when I get into contentious discussions. When I have discussions with people and things are starting to turn into a dumpster fire, I have to remind myself of this. So I'm not saying I'm an angel by any means, but I always bring myself back to Surah 16, verse 125, and it says, "Invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and kind advice, and only debate with them in the best manner. Surely your Lord alone knows best who has strayed from his way and who is rightly guided."
Praise be to Allah, brother. I've mentioned this is the third time. This is the third time that those verses have been mentioned today. These are verses that I also, as me and Mindy were talking earlier in the discussion today. These are verses that verse in particular is what caused me to start dealing with Mindy in a different manner. And because I was like, you know what? How am I inviting someone to Islam? Dawah is an invitation to Islam. So how can I be inviting someone to Islam, but I'm insulting this individual in the process? It's not going to work. It does not work. And so this
Yeah, and
brother
I had the same kind of revelation where, it's like, I don't know, because when I first met Kennedy, I didn't really know much about Islam. And I was like, how am I supposed to approach this individual, ask the questions that I have, and actually learn if I'm constantly hostile and mean and attacking? That's not productive conversation. And I think we both came to a mutual understanding. We both apologized to each other for our behavior, and now we have a great friendship,
and she's still a moderator on the channel, despite anyone's approval. Listen, if you're inviting someone to the truth and the beauty of Islam, you take them as they are initially, right? You take them as they are initially. And obviously Allah guides those whom he chooses, but he uses us as vessels in order to deliver that message. And, consider the people throughout Islamic history that were diehard enemies of Islam. If the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the companions would have had the attitude that this brother's having in the chat, matter of fact, what did he say a second ago? Bear with me 1 second. Bear with me just 1 second. He said, "We don't beg to draw filth towards Islam." Really? Consider the reward on the Day of Judgment for a Muslim who took the harshest critic of Islam, and because of their politeness and their kindness towards this individual, I'm not saying we just let someone run over us, because that's not the case. You stand up. That's what Allah says, to argue with them in ways that are best and most gracious. So you deal with the controversy, you deal with the insults and so forth, or their hostile attitude towards Islam with sabr, with patience, and with wisdom. And you use reverse psychology and say, okay, well, you know what? If they're going to keep continuing to attack me, I'm going to kill them with kindness, right? I'm going to follow the words of Allah that the brother just mentioned, and then we've mentioned 4 times now. Praise be to Allah. These verses are so important and so crucial and so vital, and Muslims are just pushing them to the side if they even ponder and ever reflect on them. You need to stop and consider the verses that the brother just read. And what does Allah say again? Invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and kind words, and argue with them in ways that are best and most gracious. There's other translations that mean the same thing, obviously. But Consider the day of judgment when your patience in dealing with certain individuals, your kindness in dealing with certain individuals causes that individual to accept Islam on the day of judgment and the reward that comes with that. Or you could be the type of person that says that person's garbage, that person's trash. I'm going to pass judgment on this individual. They don't deserve to be amongst Muslims. They don't deserve to be a moderator amongst Muslims. They don't deserve to be in conversations with Muslims. Come on, man. Think a little bit deeper than the shallowness of your thinking here. Put kindness first. Follow the example of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Please.
And it all boils down
And
to like the
especially
golden rule, which is across the board, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know,
and
we
the other
treat
thing
everybody
is-
how you want to be treated.
And the other thing is, why bring problems from yesterday into today? You're bringing up. So what it boils down to, this is the second example today where we've had two individuals in the chat that I've noticed. Usually during streams, I don't follow the chat much, but we have noticed that two individuals in particular, both who call themselves Muslims, and I'm not saying they're not Muslims, but these two Muslims have both brought up issues from the past, right? That happened over a year ago, at least for both instances. And both of these individuals are still bringing their tomfoolery and their negative attitude and their insults into today. Why would you do that? Leave that nonsense where it is. You'll be the better
Demonstrates
person
hate
for
in the
it.
heart.
You'll be the better Muslim for it. Leave it where it is. Maybe this sister right here, just like Brother Khalil, that is a former atheist, maybe at some point we'll be calling her sister and telling her, Assalamu alaikum, Mindy. Wa alaikum salam, Brother Kenny. Who knows? Inshallah. I mean, but how do you do that if you break down, or you start erecting fences and barriers instead of breaking these fences and barriers down?
On the day of judgment
here.
Us as Muslims, on the day of judgment, if we are standing before our Creator, and our Creator says, "Hey, so you spoke to this Mindy individual, and Mindy was I know her intentions. I'm omniscient, so I know her intentions. She was a genuine person. She was truly open-minded of hearing the truth of Islam, and more than happy if she's convinced to become part of the belief, become part of the faith. But instead, you had thrown derogatory names at her. You were disrespectful, this, that, and the other. And because of your mannerisms, you pushed her away from Islam. And she died an atheist. Now, what's going to happen? What's going to happen, when you have to answer that? You could have made a difference. You could have brought her to Islam. But instead, you decided to treat her like this. And now what? Now she's an atheist?
Yeah.
Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to have to look at Mindy and say, hey, you haven't been given the truth. You haven't been given exactly what you need to believe in Islam. Your interactions with the Muslims have been them disrespecting you and being arrogant, being mean, all these things. So she hasn't received the truth. How could I possibly punish her if she hasn't received anything that's convincing yet?
That's right. That's right.
I mean, we have to be respectful. We have to be respectful.
My goodness, man.
We also have to understand that us as believers, we already have this instilled idea that God exists. That doesn't mean that anybody who doesn't believe it is just trying to be deceitful, trying to be trying to be a liar of any sort. They're not convinced. At one point in time, I was not convinced. That doesn't mean that I was hiding the fact or that I was just ignoring the truth right in front of my face. I truly wasn't convinced. And right now, neither is Mindy. So what we can do is we can have conversations. We don't believe that we actually do anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses and he guides who he wills, and he
absolutely agree with that.
That's exactly what it is. But we can do our best to try and, one, show the mannerisms of what a Muslim is supposed to be like, and two, provide the reasons on why we believe. And inshallah, hopefully, the sister comes to Islam.
Inshallah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brother Mustafa,
I just think ultimately we should treat everybody with kindness, regardless of belief.
Correct.
I totally agree. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Mustafa. Brother Mustafa says compassion is necessary. Compassion, having compassion, is an attribute of a Muslim. It should be. We should be compassionate Surely, what do we say? One of the 99 beautiful names of Allah is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the most gracious, the most merciful, the compassionate, right? The most compassionate. And we follow and we try to emulate to the best of our ability. Of course, we can't get close. Follow these 99 names of Allah and try to emulate these things, right? Being the most being as compassionate as we can. We can't be the most compassionate, but being as compassionate as we can. And how are we going to guide someone to Islam if we're not talking to them? What better people to talk to guide them to Islam than the atheists? Christians and Jews and so forth, they already have a God conscience, so they're somewhat on a path of that's good, right? An atheist is a person that should be one of the first people that we want to engage because they have no God conscience. And Mindy obviously does, in a sense. She's more agnostic, it sounds like, obviously. So, but listen, we don't want to be standing before Allah on the day of judgment and be the reason that someone rejected Islam, as the brother had mentioned. That'd be a very bad place to be. It'd be a very bad place to be. And as far as your question a moment ago about her bringing LGBTQ into Islam, how's she going to do that? For one, she's not trying to do that. She hasn't brought up anything about LGBTQ, and she knows where I stand on the whole issue. Written a book about it. Mm-hmm. But how is she doing that? Listen, when you become perfect in your life, then you have the right to criticize someone else. But guess what? You'll never be perfect in your life. So criticizing someone else for what they do and so forth, that's not your job. Our job as Muslims is to do what? Just what the verses say again. Invite to the way of your Lord. Do the dawah. Engage in.
Why is the whole LGBTQ thing so important? Like we in Islam, it's no secret. We believe that performing acts that the LGBTQ community performs is sinful. We believe it's sinful. That's no secret. But why should that be held up on a pedestal above other things? Why should and I understand that there's certain times and certain topics, yes, it's necessary for us to speak about when it's time to speak about it. But it seems like whenever I go into a room and there's an atheist there and there's theists, whether they're Muslims or Christians or whatever, for some reason, the topic of LGBTQ always comes up. And it's not always the atheist that brings it up. Sometimes it's the theist that's like, well, do you accept this? And it kind of like they're provoking some type of emotional response from the atheist, because a lot of atheists are in support of the LGBTQ community, right? So it seems as if a lot of times the theist is trying to provoke this emotional response. Why is it that important? Why not give them the reasons on why you believe what you do, rather than talk about how people live their lives?
That makes a lot more sense to me as an atheist. Like, if you're going to come at me and tell me, well, this is not accepted in your religion, and this is not accepted in your religion, and this is a sin, that's not convincing to me. I want to know why you believe what you believe and how you got there, because that might be something that leads me to the same conclusion. So what you can and can't do individually in your religion has really nothing to do with whether or not I'm going to believe, and it's not going to convince me.
Correct. And I do want to make sure I say that, like, for example, Brother Kenny, he has his book, Your Right to Self-Identify, My Right to Disagree. There is a time and place, most definitely, that it's appropriate to have these discussions. But I don't think talking about LGBTQ is going to bring an atheist to the belief in God.
Yeah, and the point that I was about to make is, if Mindy came to the panel today, by example, and bringing up LGBTQ, well, great, because I've written a book about the issue. So what better place to address the issue than with someone who's written a book about the issue? So, but the fact that you're bringing that up is just, you're trying to label her as accuse her of doing something that she hasn't actually tried to do. She's never come to my channel ever and tried to promote anything that she's doing on a personal level. She's not trying to promote any type of nothing on from what she does outside of this channel. She's never affected us in any capacity, in any negative light. All she's done is been a decent person and tried to regulate comments in the chat and make sure that people aren't saying insulting and offensive things in the chat. Meanwhile, this person used to be a moderator and is no longer a moderator because, and probably doesn't care one way or the other, but nevertheless, this person is no longer, MI5 Dunya is no longer a moderator because of the comments like the ones you're making in the chat today. Let this sister alone and let her come in here and have engaging and fruitful discussions with people who are willing to engage her in fruitful and meaningful discussions. And if
And I
you're not
don't
one
I
of
don't
those
mean
people,
to
just stay out of it.
And I don't mean to bring it up to cause drama or cause arguments or anything like that. But I think it's important that we address that kind of behavior to show how damaging it can be. Because honestly, I didn't come to your channels or your Dawa or any of that for a good 6 months in particular, specifically for this person.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're behaving this way, it can be extremely damaging. And that's kind of the point that I wanted to address.
Yeah. No, it's, it's, and that's 6 months of, who knows what type of impact we could have had. There's no telling. Allah knows best, and hopefully, we have many more in the future. Inshallah, we have many more discussions, and we still have time as long as there's breath and life in us, and which is a mercy from Allah within itself. So, listen,
I
man.
I do have to head out though,
Okay.
because it's
Okay.
time to go and feed the family and do the housewifey things.
Okay. All right.
It was good seeing you again, Mindy.
It was good to see you too. Hopefully we'll get to chat again in the future. And thank you for having me on, Kenny. I appreciate it. I've missed talking to you.
It's been wonderful, and I thank you for coming, and I look forward to doing it again, inshallah, God willing. So,
Inshallah.
you have a great day, and may
I'll
may our
talk to
God,
you
our
soon.
Creator, bless you and your family.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
All right, alhamdulillah. Brother Khalil, thank you for coming as well, man. Had no clue that you were an atheist before. I didn't know much about you. But it's good to hear that she is aware of who you are, and surely Allah guides those whom He chooses, and He does things in His timing and so forth. And I do pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless us with the opportunity to call her a sister in Islam at some point along the way, inshallah.
Inshallah.
She's a nice person.
I'm glad that you were able to actually schedule and have a debate with Matt Dillahunty. I've been attempting to do that for a while.
Yeah.
I messaged him back in the day, and about a year and a half ago, and he said, "Hey, I'm going on vacation. I'll let you know when I get back." And then we've just had communication problems the whole time ever since.
Yeah.
But
so you might want to get with James with Modern Day Debate. Maybe I could touch base with him or try to send you his email.
Yeah. I'm in conversation with him on Modern Day Debate. I'm trying to have a debate with David Wood.
Okay. So. Okay. Great. Yeah, I've got part 2 of my debate with David Wood. Hopefully, it happened this year. Just the scheduling haven't been able to work it out yet. But I've still got a whole other half of my argument to drop on him. So,
inshallah,
I'm looking forward to that. And also, I'm going to have looking forward to another engagement with Matt Dillahunty on the topic of water in particular. I don't know if you watched all the debate or not, but about everything being created from water.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I want to have a discussion with him about that topic. Anyway, we'll see what happens, inshallah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed both of those debates immensely.
Same thing over and over again.
Huh?
But, I keep seeing the same arguments over and over again. I'm waiting for new arguments to come out.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
But all right, brother, I'm going to jump off of here. Thanks for having me on. I think my wife is calling me, so I need to figure out what's going on. So thanks for having me on, brother, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you rewards in this life and the next. Ameen. And I'll see you guys later. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so Aaron Copeland, he says, I was an alcoholic most of my life. When I converted to Islam, I went to rehab. I'm in recovery. Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah. That's music to my ears, brother. So, I mean, my goodness, people aren't perfect. And if we start judging people, before they accept Islam, how are they ever going to accept Islam? If, we're going to treat them, with insults and, direct insults towards them and try to pass judgment on them as though they're not worthy of our interactions and so forth, then, that's not going to do any good. But being kind to one another and doing what Allah says, once again, invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and kind words, and argue with them in ways that are best and most gracious. That's how you do it. That's how you, have an effect on people and guide them to the Insirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path of Allah. Insulting them and ridiculing them and calling them names and insulting them over and over and over again for years at this point is not going to do the job. So with that being said, I thank everyone for watching. If you've been trying to contact me, there's a few people who I've got to send some books to, and I've been extremely busy as of late, so please bear with me. I will try to get these things done as soon as possible. Be on the lookout, matter of fact, speaking of books, for the upcoming book, You Might Be an Islamophobe If. This book has been complete for a while, but I put that one on hold because I wanted to get the book published. That's on my right side within the video. Your right to self-identify, my right to disagree, dealing with the transgender issue. I kind of put that one before the You Might Be an Islamophobe If, but that book, You Might Be an Islamophobe If, inshallah, will be out sometime before the summer, inshallah, or in the summertime sometime. I'm not exactly sure as of yet, but be on the lookout for that. Your right to self-identify, my right to disagree, you can get that in the audio book as well as the ebook and the paperback and the hardback, which all the books come in the ebook, paperback, and hardback, but the only one that has the audio version of it thus far is Your Right to Self-Identify. So you can find that on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble and some other outlets as well if you'd like to check out the book, inshallah. I'm also doing a video series per chapter. I think I've uploaded so far the introduction to the book and the first 2 or 3 chapters. First 2 for sure. I think I did the third chapter as well. I don't remember right now, but you can listen to those if you'd like on the YouTube channel. Assalamu alaikum. Looks like I was having some connectivity issues with my internet over here. Anyways, I want to leave everyone by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. All praise is due to Allah. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe, like, and share. And assalamu alaikum to everyone with Coventry Faith Foundation. Also, people of the book and Dawah TV on Facebook. Thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum.